Greetings, welcome to Happywork TV. I am your intrepid host, Chris Reimer. This was not meant to be like super cheesy, guy sit down at the table. I just don't know how to edit video very well, so I had to get up and go across the table, my dining room table, to start the camera. And the end of the video will be equally as awkward. This is the first video, episode 38, that I've made since the book came out. So I am, well, I was tired last week. I've caught up on my sleep a little bit. It's been fun. It's been really a busy, amazing time. Social Media Club here in St. Louis did a wonderful book launch for me. Last Thursday night, I gave a speech that some people said was good. I wasn't sure how it was going as I was giving it, but we have video evidence of it that will be releasing probably in a couple weeks or a month or something like that. So, so things are good. Things are really good. The only thing that's sucking is the making of these videos. So I expected to be on episode 70 or 80 by this point, but intentions, best laid intentions did not quite work out. So Happywork is out now, and it definitely feels good. I was joking with someone at Social Media Club saying that I'm just glad I literally survived until February 17th just to see it come out. I'd finished this book a year previous, and I just said, I hope nothing happens to me. I just want to be living when it comes out, even though being dead might have juiced sales a little bit. So it was a great week last week, launch week. I had my friend Dave Kirpin of Likeable wrote a wonderful post on LinkedIn that ended up getting 132,000 views and 400 comments. So that really actually helped with sales. Sales kind of spiked, at least on Amazon, which is where people seem to buy books these days. And my uncle went to the Barnes & Noble in Iowa City and bought it, so I'm not so eagerly looking forward to what he thinks of it. Anyway, I want to go over, in this first video in like a couple weeks, let's go over one of the commitments in the back of the book. So if you haven't read it yet, you're going to be reading a piece of fiction. You're going to find, you get to the back, you're not going to be able to read this. Why am I holding this up? But there's a fictitious company called Venori, and I create a work code of conduct called the Happywork Agreement, or the characters in the book do, which allows them to, let's say, they give themselves a chance to save the company. Anyway, I have been making videos going over each of these commitments. There are 46 in all. Some are commitments that employers are going to make to their employees. Some, we didn't want to leave this out because we have to be fair, some of them are commitments that employees are going to make back to their employers. And then of course there's some that they're going to jointly make because it's fair for both sides to commit to that particular commitment. So we are still in section 2, which I called respect for each other, human solidarity, and let me see if I can find, all right. So here's the next commitment, and this is a commitment that an employer is going to make to an employee, or in this case, perhaps an outgoing employee. And this is funny too, because we talked about this in the Dave Kirpin article, which I helped him, with some of the ideas a little bit. We talked about this. So the article was 8 ways to ruin your office culture, and one of them was Haze outgoing employees. It was obviously a joke. Out of the 400 something comments, there were actually several comments that said, this list is terrible, I don't think we should do this. And I think there was something perhaps lost in translation, maybe across the ocean. I said, no, this is just a joke. It's a satirical look at what you might do if you wanted to ruin your culture. Let's actually go back to normal arguments. We're not going to do a satirical or go, we're not going to use reverse psychology here. Here's the next one. If an employee resigns, I will not make it hard on them. There's no need to haze or hate on people who are leaving the organization, even if they leave during a tough stretch. Timing is never good on things like this, and I acknowledge that. I meaning the employer, the manager, the upper management, whoever. We need to look inward and see what happened. That doesn't happen very often. And we need to remember that these departing employees could turn out to be great walking, talking ambassadors for us. Parentheses, or just the opposite. And, this doesn't seem to govern behavior terribly often. What I've noticed, and I work at a great place now, but what I've noticed in the past, what I have noticed since this book came out, people are starting to email me, they're private messaging me on Twitter, Most of the time they have way more to say than 140 characters, so they're private messaging me on either LinkedIn or Facebook, or like I said, email, and they are telling me stories. They are telling me very interesting stories about what's happening to them. I have a friend here in St. Louis who just sent me a note and said he had lost his job. That's fine. We don't always get to keep our jobs. Understand? It's not like full employment here. We're not like trying to run the Soviet Union or something. But this guy's not a threat to them. They swooped in, they turned his computer off, deactivated everything. They had him escorted from the building. That actually happens in my book, by the way, to several unsuspecting people. You know, and I just thinking to myself, this is in many ways largely unnecessary. It's dehumanizing. It's just kind of ridiculous. And so what I have noticed, though, about having quit some other jobs is, you know, if you give 2 weeks notice, an employer will complain and say it's not enough time. If you give 0 notice, they will say, well, why didn't you give 2 weeks notice? One time I gave 3 weeks notice, and the guy was like, well, that's not very much time. And I was like, well, it's better than 2, which is the standard. And like, I have another job, you know, so I'm leaving you for ostensibly some good reason. It's funny because that job, the one I'm thinking of, I actually took a pretty steep pay cut to leave there to go to the next place. Now, within 2 years, I had gotten raises and promotions and had made the money back up. But I was leaving there because like I had terrible work-life balance. I didn't see my kids. And in that instance, it was just one kid. The other one had not been born yet. But I mean, there was 1 week where I did not see my child awake all week. I left in the morning and she was asleep, and I would arrive home and she was asleep. So some of you might be watching and say, hey, that's no big deal. For me, it's a really big deal. I said this in my speech the other night. You cannot Skype your kid to sleep. It just doesn't count. It's just not the same. When you're on the road and travel, obviously happens with jobs. It's totally fine. I actually like business travel. I just don't want to do it all the time, and I really want to see my kids every once in a while. But, you know, at that particular job, after he had made the 3 weeks comment, those 3 weeks were terrible. You know, and they're not designed to be great. I mean, you're excited. You're excited because you're leaving. Now, the employer rarely takes that into consideration. They don't really give a crap. They have bills to pay, and you're leaving them. So you've hurt their feelings. You're like a girl breaking up with the boy. You're breaking their heart a little bit. And so as an employee who has quit several jobs in his time, I try to keep this in mind. I just try to remember, like, this is personal to them, you know? Like the old Godfather line, it's not personal, it's just business. Well, it's both. Business is part of our lives, and our lives are very personal, so it's personal. So try not to hate on the person that you're quitting on, but Mr. Employer, try not to hate on us. We're just trying to move on and make something better for ourselves and our family. One time I quit a job and it took me 3 hours to quit. It was a 3-hour meeting. In the meeting, I was told that I was going to be a failure at the next job, to which I replied, well, then this seems like a complete blessing that I'm leaving. I sound like a wretch, a useless glob of 90% water, and I'm just a bag here of skin, and I'm doing nothing for you, is what I'm hearing. And so this is actually fantastic for you. I am out of here. And that didn't make sense to the person. They just wanted to yell at me. They wanted to yell at me and hate on me. And to this day, anyone who's interested in hearing about that organization can hear what they need to hear from me privately. I won't talk about it publicly. There's just no point to it. But privately, if you're my friend and you need to know the scoop, I'll be somewhat diplomatic, but you'll get the scoop. Now, I've worked at other places that I've been laid off because we like lost half our revenue. And, you know, I was treated with respect. I was given some severance. On the day of separation, I was handed a sheet of paper that described all the different job searching sites that I could use. There was the address and directions to the unemployment office. People weren't happy to see us go. It just needed to happen. That's a completely different way to handle a situation like that versus bringing the stormtroopers in and stripping down cubes. And that guy I told you about earlier, they said they would mail him his stuff. I'd be like, don't touch my stuff. That's my stuff. I can get it myself. There are employees who are like they're gonna take a jump drive or a flash drive and steal a bunch of stuff. I get that happens, so I don't mind a little bit of security, but at the same time, I mean, treat people with dignity and respect. And just because they're quitting on you doesn't mean you have to make those last couple of weeks or however long it is a living hell for the employee. It actually sends a really crappy, terrible message to the employees who are left behind. Keep in mind, some of those employees might be friends with this employee. Why would you treat them like crap? It's just terrible business. Don't do that. This has been episode 38 of Happywork TV. It is possible this will be the last time that I do this sitting from my dining room table. I don't know whether to lean back, lean forward, the chair's creaking. We had to try something new. I am going to see you next time, and I now have to get up and turn off the camera. Perhaps I will do this, floating book, something like that. Thanks for watching. Cheers.